Sister Maria had always been different. From a young age, she had felt a deep, unshakable calling to serve God. She had entered the convent at the age of 18, dedicating her life to prayer, service, and devotion. Now, at 62, she had spent more than 4 decades behind the stone walls of St. Agnes Monastery, a place known for its silence, its deep spiritual life, and the miracles whispered about by the faithful. But nothing could have prepared her, or the world, for what was about to happen. It began on a cold autumn evening. Sister Maria had been feeling weak for days, though she kept it to herself. The work of the monastery never ceased, and she did not wish to burden the other nuns. She continued her daily prayers, waking at dawn, kneeling in the chapel for hours, and tending to the sick in the small hospital run by the convent. Yet something was not right. That evening, as she prepared to retire to her small, sparsely furnished room, a sharp pain shot through her chest. She gasped, clutching at her habit, her knees giving way. The last thing she saw was the flickering candlelight before everything faded to darkness. The other sisters found her moments later, collapsed on the stone floor. They called for help, but by the time the doctor arrived, Sister Maria was gone. For 20 minutes her body lay still, unresponsive. No heartbeat, no breath, no life, and yet Sister Maria was not truly dead. The moment her heart stopped, Sister Maria felt a strange lightness. The pain in her chest was gone. The coldness of the stone floor had disappeared. Instead, she felt warmth, as though she were being wrapped in the most gentle embrace. She opened her eyes, only to realize she was floating. Below her, she saw her own body lying motionless. The other nuns were gathered around, their faces filled with grief, their lips moving in hurried prayers. She saw Mother Superior pressing a trembling hand to her own lips, whispering, "Lord, take her into your hands." Sister Maria wanted to call out to them, to tell them that she was still there, that she was not afraid. But then a great light appeared before her. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, brighter than the sun, yet soothing to her eyes. It pulled her toward it, gently yet irresistibly. And as she moved into the radiance, she felt a peace so profound that tears welled up in her eyes. Then she heard it, a voice. Not a voice of this world, but something beyond it. It was deep yet soft, powerful yet loving. "Come, my child." And with those words, Sister Maria found herself somewhere else entirely. She stood before a magnificent gate, shimmering like gold yet appearing almost weightless, as though woven from pure light. Beyond it, she could see a city unlike any she had ever imagined. The streets were paved with something that looked like crystal, glowing with an inner radiance. Towers stretched toward the heavens, yet they did not cast shadows. But it was not the beauty of the place that overwhelmed her. It was the presence. She could feel it, love, power, holiness beyond comprehension. It surrounded her, filled her, made her whole. She knew, without a doubt, this was heaven. A figure approached her, tall, radiant, clothed in a robe of purest white. His eyes burned with kindness and wisdom, and when he spoke, his voice resonated in her very soul. "Sister Maria, you have been faithful in your journey. You have loved, you have served, and your prayers have been heard in the highest places." Tears streamed down her face as she fell to her knees. Lord, am I home? The figure smiled. You have seen, but your time is not yet fulfilled. There is something you must do. Confusion filled her heart. But why? I do not wish to return. This is paradise. The figure reached out, gently touching her forehead. In that moment, a flood of images rushed through her mind, faces of people she had met, people she had prayed for, people who had lost their faith. And then she saw the future. A great darkness, a world losing its way, people turning from God, forgetting His love. She saw churches emptying, prayers fading, hearts growing cold. And she saw herself, standing once more among the living, telling them what she had seen. She gasped, You are sending me back? The voice softened. There is still work to be done. They need to hear. They need to know. A wave of sorrow washed over her. She did not want to leave. And yet she understood. Her mission was not yet over. The figure stepped aside, and behind him, a pathway of light appeared. She felt herself being drawn toward it, though every fiber of her being longed to stay. She turned one last time, gazing at the beauty of heaven, at the love that radiated from it. And then, everything went dark. With a gasp, Sister Maria's eyes flew open. A sharp breath filled her lungs, and she sat up abruptly. The nuns around her shrieked in terror, backing away as if they had seen a ghost. Sister Maria? Mother Superior stumbled forward, pressing a trembling hand to her face. The doctor, who had been moments away from declaring the time of death, dropped his stethoscope in shock. Tears streamed down Sister Maria's face as she looked at them, her heart still pounding from what she had just witnessed. I have seen heaven, she whispered, and I have been sent back. The room fell silent. The other nuns stared at her, some crossing themselves in disbelief, others crying openly. But Sister Maria knew one thing for certain. Her life would never be the same again. The silence in the room was deafening. Every eye was fixed on Sister Maria, who had just returned from the dead. The other nuns, once grieving, now stood in stunned disbelief. Mother Superior, usually composed and firm, struggled to find words. Finally, she whispered, Sister Maria, is it really you? Tears welled in Maria's eyes. Yes, Mother. I was there. I saw heaven. A murmur spread through the room. Some of the younger sisters clutched their rosaries, whispering silent prayers. Others gasped in shock. But it was the doctor, an outsider, a man of science, who spoke next. That's impossible. He stared at her as if he had seen a ghost. Sister Maria, you were gone. There was no heartbeat, no breath. For 20 minutes. No one comes back after that. Maria's lips trembled. She remembered every moment of what she had seen, the golden gates, the radiant figure, the peace that had enveloped her. But she also remembered the mission she had been given. She had been sent back for a reason. Taking a deep breath, she looked around the room and said, I need to speak. I need to tell you what I saw. The nuns gathered in the chapel, their eyes fixed on Maria as she sat before them. Even the doctor stayed, curiosity outweighing his skepticism. Maria began softly, her voice filled with emotion. I felt no pain when I left this world. There was no fear, only peace. And then I saw a great light, brighter than the sun, yet it did not hurt my eyes. I just knew, I was in the presence of God. Some nuns gasped, others held their hands to their hearts. She continued, I stood before the gates of heaven. They were not made of gold or iron, but of pure light. Beyond them I saw a city, a place so beautiful it cannot be described in human word. There were voices singing, a melody so perfect it filled my soul with joy. Tears streamed down her face as she recounted the moment she had fallen to her knees, overcome by the presence of God. And then, I was told that I had to return. A hush fell over the room. Mother Superior leaned forward. Return? But why? Maria swallowed hard. Because the world has forgotten. Because faith is fading. Because people no longer seek God the way they once did. Her voice grew stronger. I was sent back with a message. We must prepare. There is a great darkness coming, a time of trials and tests. Many will lose their faith, but those who hold on to God, who do not turn away, will be saved. Her words sent chills through the listeners. Prepare your hearts, strengthen your faith, and most of all, never doubt that heaven is real. The nuns sat in stunned silence, absorbing her words. Some wept, others clutched their rosaries tighter. But one remained skeptical. Sister Agnes had always been one of the most logical of the sisters. A former teacher, she believed in faith, but she also believed in reason. Now, as she watched Sister Maria speak, a frown formed on her face. How do we know this wasn't just a dream? Or the mind playing tricks on you in death? She asked carefully. Maria turned to her, understanding the doubt in her eyes. Because I saw things I could not have imagined on my own. I was shown people, events that have not yet happened. I was given a vision of the world, as it will be if we do not turn back to God. Sister Agnes hesitated. And what did you see? Maria's hands clenched in her lap. A world without faith. A world where the churches grow empty, where prayers are forgotten. I saw suffering, wars, hunger, pain. And in the midst of it, I saw souls crying out, lost in darkness because they had turned away from the light. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I saw the consequences of a world without God. A shudder passed through the chapel. Even the doctor, who had remained quiet, looked shaken. Sister Agnes lowered her gaze. If what you say is true, then what must we do? Maria exhaled slowly. We must pray. We must share this message with the world. We must remind people that heaven is real, that God is waiting for them. And we must prepare for what is to come. The news of Sister Maria's return spread beyond the convent. Priests, bishops, and even reporters arrived, eager to hear her story. Some believed her instantly, others doubted. But it was what happened next that made even the skeptics believe. One evening, as Maria prayed alone in the chapel, a light filled the room. The other sisters, hearing the commotion, rushed inside. What they saw made them fall to their knees. Sister Maria was glowing. Her hands, clasped in prayer, shone with a golden light. A warmth spread through the chapel, and those who were sick felt their pain vanish. A blind man who had come seeking a miracle opened his eyes for the first time in years. A miracle. The doctor, once skeptical, knelt beside Maria, tears streaming down his face. "This is real," he whispered. Maria slowly opened her eyes. She had been given a gift, a sign to prove her story was true. From that day forward, people from all over came to hear her testimony. Some sought healing, others sought answers. But all left knowing one thing. Sister Maria had truly seen heaven. Years passed, and Sister Maria continued to share her story. She traveled far and wide, speaking to churches, families, even those who had long abandoned their faith. Before her death, her true death, years later, her final words echoed through the halls of the monastery. "Do not wait until it is too late to believe. Heaven is real, God is real, and He is waiting for you." And with that, she closed her eyes, a peaceful smile on her face, knowing she would finally return to the home she had seen long ago. The end, or just the beginning. Sister Maria's story is one that reminds us that faith is real, miracles exist, and heaven is waiting for us. If this story touched you, share it with others so they may hear the message too. And if you want to hear more incredible stories of faith and miracles, subscribe to our channel. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us of the truth we've always known.